Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. Now, I meant actually to do this video yesterday. As things rise, I got a little jotter, and as things rise, I write down. Oh yeah, that'll be interesting. I wrote it down. Then I don't know, skipped it, missed it. I don't know how, but I knew I wanted to do this one. And we're going to talk about. Well, you can tell from the thumbnail. We're going to talk about Ed Miliband, the bacon sandwich destroyer extraordinaire. He gave what can only be described as a speech at conference. It was not a good speech. It was a speech of him getting on his feet, filled with arrogance, with conceit, and with, I don't know what you'd say, schoolboy level understandings. It was full of fluff. There was no content to it. And what he was saying is so obviously wrong. And we're going to have a look at a couple of things he said. I'm not going to go through the whole speech. God almighty, God forbid that. No way will be drive you bonkers. But, he gave this speech and there was nothing new. It was all regurgitated BS from previous speeches. He's basically shaved a testicle and, saying it's the same old testicle, but presented in a different way. And there's a bull sitting behind him going, I didn't want to have it shaved, But that's all this is. Put a new frock on it and pretend it's new. He's blaming all these previous governments for this problem. It's got nothing to do with the problems of the world in terms of all the things that they claim are going on. Nothing to do with Britain. Britain isn't the one building 26 coal-fired power stations. Britain isn't the one of the two countries who, between the two of them, are responsible for 75% of the world's pollution and, creation of carbon and all this. China and India, they're the problem. It doesn't matter. We can go back to Stone Age times. It won't make a jot of difference. But he's determined to show that we're the best in the world at fucking up our economy. And so he's producing these plans, which are utterly ludicrous and totally dangerous and will result, I think, in death. He's trying to remove from Britain any kind of energy security. And once you lose energy security, you're at the whims, A, of other people who may not have your benefit, your health and safety in mind. And secondly, when anything does happen and hospitals close down, the vulnerable will die. Not the likes of Miliband, of course. Oh, no, they'll be in their posh private hospitals with their emergency supplies. But the rest of us plebs, we'll have to make do, won't we? Hope we don't die. That seems to be the mindset with these arrogant pricks. But he's out there and he's talking about, the brave new world, all these new opportunities. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Miliband, all these new opportunities that you talk of are designed entirely to make us poor and China rich. You talk about heat pumps. Where are 95% of the world's heat pumps made? China. You talk about solar cells. Where are virtually all the solar cells in the world made? China. You talk about this and that and the other. All you're talking about is destroying Britain and enriching a regime that relies on savagery, that relies on child labour, that relies on slave labour to construct the very things that you want to put into all of our houses. How does that sit with your virtuousness and your wonderfulness? You'd think, being a Jewish person, you'd be very much aware of things like concentration camps, for example. But your new Chinese chums, they love concentration camps. Perhaps if you were to spend some time in one, you might change your views on China. Ask your great-grandparents how good concentration camps were. I'm sure they will have a very particular viewpoint on that one, Mr. Miliband. But on top of that, he's proposing changes which will destroy this country. He wants every rental property to have a heat pump by 2030. First of all, there aren't enough heat pumps, can't do it. Secondly, it will destroy the rental market across the whole of Britain. And thirdly, it will destroy the economy because all that money that's going into £30,000, £35,000 a house is money coming out of the economy elsewhere. It's all part of the plan, of course. He wants us all living in caves, eating bug burgers, and doing as we're told. I'm surprised they aren't putting chemical castrations into our food, putting anxiety inhibitors into the air, making us all happy little vassals of the state in a little drug-induced happiness. Hey, tramadol. Now, this man is dead set on these things. Nobody has pointed out that it's impossible. Nobody has pointed out that it's dangerous. Nobody's pointed out that it isn't going to happen. He seems to think it is. The only saving grace is anything run by Ed Miliband, is doomed to failure because he is such an arse. He is a very low intelligence man. He does not understand the things he's talking about. And any time, we know this, and this is historical, we know any time a British government puts a time frame on anything, it just ain't going to happen. Oh, yes, 2030. Not a chance in hell. Number one, all those houses suddenly coming off the gas grid and going onto the electricity supply to supply this marvellous new non-workable heat pump system is going to put such a draw on the electrical supply at the same time as they're closing down the gas-fired power stations and closing down our oil and coal and everything. Where does he think the electricity is going to come from? Because it don't come at night, because solar cells don't work at night, and it don't come when the wind ain't blowing. What's he going to do? Burn them unicorn farts? No. If he wanted truly 100% electrical supply in this country, he better start building nuclear power stations. 200 nuclear power stations. Minimum. You're going to need 36 just to run the cars. Then there's all the homes. Then there's all the factories. Then there's all the big infrastructure, railways, and things like that. 200 nuclear power stations. It's taken 30 years to build one. So I'm not going to hold my breath. If the one tangible thing comes out of Miliband's speech, it's that we are now, all of us, to a man and woman across the nation, totally convinced that the man's an arse. I'm not actually worried about his plans because they're never, ever going to happen. At least not in my life. Probably not in my son's. And there won't be a Labour Party there in 5 years' time. By 2030, somebody else will be in charge. Probably Reform. And they've already said all this is going by the way. It's bullshit, and we all know it. Anyway, thanks very much. Take care. Keep eating them bacon sandwiches, and goodbye.